How did the age of conservatism influence the course of British rule in India? This question invites us on a journey to the early 19th century, a time when the political landscape in Britain was undergoing a significant transformation. The age of conservatism was born out of a desire to preserve traditional institutions, values, and customs. It was a counter-reaction to the liberal ideologies that had previously held sway. These ideologies, characterized by beliefs in progress, individual freedom, and equality, were gradually being replaced by conservative principles that emphasized order, stability, and respect for authority. Conservatism as a political philosophy began to take root during the tenure of Sir Robert Peel, a prominent British politician who served as Prime Minister in the mid-19th century. Peel was instrumental in shaping conservative thought, advocating for policies that upheld the status quo and resisted radical change. This shift in political thinking was not confined to the shores of Britain. It bled into the way the British approached their colonies. The age of conservatism marked a departure from the liberal approach that had characterized British colonial policy in the previous century. This new conservative approach was characterized by a greater emphasis on preserving British authority and maintaining order, often at the expense of the rights and freedoms of the colonized peoples. India, as the jewel in the crown of the British Empire, was particularly affected by this shift. Prior to this era, British rule in India had been marked by a degree of liberal policy making, which included attempts to reform Indian society and introduce Western ideals. The dawn of conservatism, however, brought a new, more paternalistic approach, which saw the British rulers as the benevolent guardians of their Indian subjects, guiding them towards civilization and progress, often without their consent. This change in approach resulted in a profound shift in the dynamics of British rule in India. It also set the stage for a period of significant change, as India began to grapple with the implications of this new ideology. As conservatism took hold, so too did a new approach to colonial rule, setting the stage for a period of significant change in India. But what did this shift to conservatism actually mean for India under British rule? It signified a wave of changes that had a lasting impact on the Indian subcontinent. To understand the practical implications of conservative governance, let's delve into the policies introduced during this time. The British, under the guise of maintaining social order and tradition, sought to preserve the status quo. This translated into a series of regulations that were deeply rooted in the preservation of the existing societal structure. The British administration believed that by keeping the Indian society in its traditional form, they could maintain control more effectively. This approach was not just limited to societal norms and structures. The British also placed a strong emphasis on preserving religious customs and cultural practices. They encouraged traditional religious practices and often intervened in religious disputes in an attempt to maintain harmony. The British rulers were careful not to disrupt the religious sentiments of the Indian population, using this as a tool to sustain their rule. However, this preservationist approach was more than just a tactic for maintaining control. The British genuinely believed in the virtue of the Indian culture. They admired the richness of Indian traditions and saw value in preserving them. This admiration, though, was often expressed from a position of superiority and did not translate into respect for the Indian people's rights and freedoms. The conflict arose when these policies began to rub against the interests and desires of the Indian population. The Indian people yearned for progress and modernity. They wanted a say in their governance, an opportunity to shape their own destiny. But the British conservative rule, with its focus on preservation and control, was often at odds with these aspirations. The age of conservatism saw the British Empire imposing a rule that was often at odds with the aspirations of the Indian people. The Indian people wanted change, but the British rulers, enamored with the exoticism of India and intent on control, were determined to keep India frozen in time. How did these conservative policies impact Indian society? The age of conservatism under British rule brought about significant changes to the Indian society, many of which still echo today. The socio-economic landscape was drastically transformed with the introduction of new laws, policies, and systems that aim to reshape Indian society according to conservative British standards. On the economic front, the British introduced land revenue systems which significantly impacted the agrarian society. Farmers, who were once masters of their own land, were subjected to hefty taxes, resulting in widespread poverty and famine. The introduction of new crops like tea and indigo also disrupted traditional agriculture, altering the livelihoods of millions. Simultaneously, the British attempted to reform Indian society through conservative policies. They introduced English education, aiming to create a class of Indians who were Indian in blood and color, but British in taste and intellect. This led to the emergence of a new middle class, who were anglicized in many ways, yet deeply rooted in their Indian heritage. However, the implementation of these conservative policies did not go unchallenged. The Indians' increasing resistance to British rule marked a significant shift in the national consciousness. The introduction of English education, albeit a tool of dominance, inadvertently sparked an intellectual renaissance. The educated Indian middle class began questioning British authority, leading to the birth of Indian nationalism. The Indian press played a crucial role in this rising resistance. Newspapers and journals became platforms for expressing dissent, voicing concerns, and rallying support against British rule. The seeds of revolution were sown, and the call for Swaraj, or self-rule, began to resonate across the nation. The conservative policies also led to the resurgence of Indian culture and traditions. In response to the British attempts at Anglicization, there was a revival of Indian languages, literature, and arts. The Indians began to take pride in their rich cultural heritage, further fueling the spirit of nationalism. The age of conservatism shaped India in ways that are still visible today. Despite the challenges and hardships, it was a period that marked the awakening of a nation, the birth of a unified resistance, and the beginning of a long journey towards independence. So, what is the legacy of the age of conservatism on British rule in India? In the grand scheme of things, this era was a double-edged sword for the subcontinent. On the one hand, it brought about a degree of stability and order, implementing structures and systems that still shape India today. The British introduced railways, telegraphs, and a postal service, all of which transformed the country's infrastructure. However, the age of conservatism also saw an increase in the exploitation of India's resources and people. The British East India Company's monopoly on trade led to the economic impoverishment of many Indians and the imposition of Western values and norms often dismissed and undermined India's rich cultural heritage. The legacy of the age of conservatism is perhaps most evident in the push for Indian independence. The restrictive policies and cultural insensitivity of British rule sparked a sense of nationalistic fervor among Indians. Figures such as Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru emerged, championing the cause of Indian self-rule and sovereignty. In the decades that followed, the conservative policies of the British were gradually dismantled. Yet, they left an indelible mark on the country. The English language, for instance, became a valuable tool for communication in a nation with hundreds of languages and dialects. It played a crucial role in India's growth as a global power in the 21st century. The age of conservatism also shaped India's legal and political systems. The British established courts and parliamentary system served as the foundation for India's democratic structure post-independence. While the system has been adapted to suit the unique needs of the Indian populace, its roots can be traced back to the British rule. In conclusion, the age of conservatism left a profound impact on India, shaping its modern identity and playing a crucial role in its journey towards independence. The era was marked by both progress and struggle, development and exploitation. The age of conservatism, for better or worse, played a significant role in the history of India and its path to independence. In conclusion, the age of conservatism had a profound impact on British rule in India. We've journeyed together through the principles of this pivotal period, understanding how it espoused tradition, authority, and the status quo. We've explored how these ideals were implemented in India, shaping policy and governance during British rule. We then delved into the significant effects these conservative principles had on Indian society, impacting everything from social structures to economic systems. And we've traced the enduring legacy of this era, observing how it continues to influence India's political, social, and economic landscapes. Throughout this journey, we've seen how India, in all its diversity and complexity, navigated the age of conservatism. The nation grappled with the challenges, adapted to the changes, and emerged stronger, leaving an indelible mark on its history. India's journey through the age of conservatism is a testament to its resilience and ability to adapt, a story that continues to shape the nation today.